All right, get ready because today we're taking a deep dive into some pretty wild stuff.
Oh,
You
yeah.
bet. We're talking Tainai Kyoku.
I'm not familiar with that term.
That's Japanese for fetal memories. Basically, it's the idea that babies can remember stuff from before they were born.
Whoa, hold on. Babies, remembering things from, like, the womb.
Yeah, and I know it sounds kind of out there,
Kind of. That's a serious understatement.
but we've got some seriously compelling accounts from Japanese children claiming to remember things from their time before birth, before they were even in the womb.
And these aren't just, like, vague feelings, right?
Nope, we're talking specific details, names, places, even smells.
Now that's interesting.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just anecdotal either. We've got insights from Dr. Chikawa, a researcher who's been studying this phenomenon for years.
Okay, so this isn't just some fringe theory.
Not at all. So let's jump right into our first case study. We've got a 5-year-old boy who describes his time before entering his mother's womb in vivid detail.
Okay, lay it on me. What kind of details are we talking about?
Well, he remembers being in this massive high-rise building, almost like a cosmic waiting room, filled with other kids.
A waiting room. For what?
That's the thing he doesn't really know. But he remembers receiving a letter informing him he was matched with a family. The letter even specified there would be 5 people in the household, and he would be the oldest child.
Wow, talk about predestiny. A letter, like delivered by a cosmic stork or something.
Right. The details are pretty wild, but it gets even weirder.
Weirder. How so?
Well, he specifically remembers hearing his mother's name sung in a happy birthday song, and he remembers smelling cake and takoyaki.
Takoyaki. The octopus balls.
Yep, those octopus balls.
That's incredibly specific. Is there any way to verify any of this?
His mother actually confirmed that she had a big birthday celebration around the time of his consent.
Clocked, so was there cake. And takoyaki.
She confirmed both.
So, what are we supposed to make of this? Is this evidence of some pre-birth soul-matching program going on?
It's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it? But some skeptics might argue that it's just a case of a vivid imagination mixed with bits and pieces of overheard conversations.
I guess it's hard to know for sure.
Exactly. It's a real head-scratcher. But it's interesting that the boy's memories focus so heavily on sensory details, especially smells and sounds.
Well, that does seem to be a recurring theme in a lot of these fetal memory accounts.
And Dr. Chikawa actually points this out in his research.
Makes you wonder if those senses are somehow more developed or accessible in that pre-birth state.
It really does. It kind of flips our whole understanding of fetal development on its head.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got this 5-year-old boy and his pre-birth birthday party memories. What else have you got?
Well, let's move on to our next case study. This one involves an 8-year-old girl, and her story is even more bizarre.
More bizarre than a pre-birth birthday party. All right, I'm all ears.
So this girl also claims to have chosen her parents, but her story involves a giant slide, a lost friend, and what sounds like a cosmic candy dispenser.
A giant slide. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
According to this girl, she was in a high place with a bunch of other children, and these caretakers she perceived as monsters.
Monsters. Okay, that's a little creepy.
I know, right? But she said that from this high place, they could see all the parents on Earth and got to choose who they wanted.
So it's like a cosmic adoption agency. You get to browse through a catalog of potential parents and pick the ones you like.
That's a wild concept.
Yeah.
But wait, there's more. To get down to Earth, she said they had to slide down this giant slide.
A giant slide to Earth. Seriously, where do they even find slides that big?
Well, that's where the literal interpretation might need some tweaking. It's likely she's using a metaphor to describe the transition from a non-physical realm to a physical body.
Ah, that makes more sense.
But here's the catch. She was racing her friend Little Fu down the slide, but she got stuck, and Little Fu went ahead without her.
Uh-oh. What happened to little Fu?
Well, this is where it gets really heartbreaking. The girl's mother revealed that she had a miscarriage before this daughter was born.
And the girl believes little Fu represents that miscarried child.
That's exactly what she believes.
Wow, that's incredibly sad. But it also adds another layer of intrigue to the whole thing. Could this be a way for her to process that loss, or is there something more to it?
It's impossible to say for sure. It's one of those questions that just hangs in the air.
But the story doesn't end there, does it?
Nope. This girl also predicted a second pregnancy, a younger sister.
Really? And was she right?
She was. And get this, the younger sister, at only 3 years old, started describing a dark place, feeling scared and waiting for someone who never came.
Both sisters with similar accounts, even though the younger one couldn't have heard her sister's story. It's either a massive coincidence, some bizarre form of sibling rivalry, or something way more profound.
It's almost as if they both tapped into some shared experience, some pre-birth memory.
And this whole idea of companions in the pre-birth realm is another common theme in Dr. Chikawa's research. Many children describe being with other kids before birth almost like a soul group.
A soul group, like a pre-Earth kindergarten class.
Exactly. It's a fascinating concept, isn't it?
It is. But you know, if even a tiny bit of these stories are true, it makes you really question everything we think we know about life, death, and what happens before and after.
Absolutely. It shakes the foundations of our understanding of existence itself. It makes you wonder if maybe, just maybe, there's a whole lot more to the human experience than we've ever imagined.
That's a great point. And that's precisely what we're going to explore further in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll delve even deeper into Dr. Chikawa's research and explore the broader implications of these fascinating fetal memory accounts.
More to life than we can even imagine, right?
Right. Okay, so we've got these crazy stories, but what about Dr. Chikawa, the researcher? He's interviewed, like, tons of kids who claim to have these fetal memories.
Thousands, actually.
Thousands. Okay, so what has he found? Any patterns or anything like that?
Well, one big thing is this whole idea of choice.
Choice. Like, babies choosing their parents.
It sounds crazy, I know.
It does sound crazy.
But so many of these kids say they chose their parents or their family.
So it's not just remembering. It's actually making a choice.
That's what they're saying.
Like they're shopping for a family or something.
Yeah, exactly. And remember that boy from the first story with the letter and everything?
Yeah, the one who knew he would be the oldest of 5.
Right, that one. It's almost like some pre-birth cosmic plan, you know?
A cosmic matchmaking service for souls and families.
Makes you wonder what they look for in a match, you know? What makes a soul and a family a good fit?
That's a good question. And maybe one we'll never have the answer to.
Probably not.
But anyway, besides this whole choice thing, what else did Dr. Chikawa find?
Well, another thing is all the sensory details.
Yeah, we saw that in those stories.
Especially with the boy and the birthday party.
The smell of takoyaki, you know.
Exactly. So maybe those senses are just like way stronger before birth.
Like a whole different way of experiencing the world.
Right. Dr. Chikawa thinks maybe we experience things differently before we're born, you know? Not limited by our physical bodies and stuff.
Like tuning into a different frequency.
Yeah, like that.
But it's not just smells and sounds, right? These kids talk about other kids and guides and stuff too.
Yeah, that's another big thing. Companions and guides.
Like the monsters who looked after that little girl.
Right, those. And remember how that boy mentioned a shadowy figure who led him towards his mother's womb?
It's like there's this whole system in place to help souls get to Earth.
Like a welcoming committee.
Yeah, something like that.
And the guides, they seem to comfort the kids, you know, when they're scared about coming into this world.
I guess that makes sense. Being born is a pretty crazy experience.
Right. Maybe it's not always easy, this whole transition to Earth, and they need a little help.
It's like being dropped off at a new school on the first day.
Yeah, and you're totally lost and scared.
But it's not all scary, right? Like with that cosmic playground and the giant slide.
You're right. Some of it sounds fun, almost playful.
Makes you wonder why we forget all this, you know? If it's so amazing before we're born, why don't we remember any of it?
It's a real mystery.
Like someone hit the delete button when we're born.
Some people think it's the trauma of birth, you know?
The shock of it all.
Yeah, like our minds just block it all out.
Cosmic amnesia.
Exactly. Maybe our brains just need to, like, adjust to this new reality?
Okay, so let's just say for a second that these memories are real.
Let's say they are.
What would that even mean for us? For how we see ourselves and everything?
Well, it would kind of blow up a lot of our ideas about things, wouldn't it?
It would.
If we have a consciousness before we're born, and maybe even after we die, that's huge.
It means we're not just our bodies.
Right. It suggests there's more to us than just this physical stuff.
Like we're part of something bigger, something more spiritual.
Exactly.
It's like dipping your toes into a massive ocean you didn't even know existed.
And realizing how little we actually know.
Yeah, it's humbling.
And maybe a little exciting, too.
Definitely exciting. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Fetal memories, choices, guides, even the spiritual stuff.
A lot to think about.
And we'll be back in part 3 to wrap things up and talk about what all of this could mean for us. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our fetal memory deep dive. And wow, we've gone pretty deep, haven't we?
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. Before we wrap things up, though, I want to touch on those guides again.
The guides?
Yeah, those helpers or teachers that a lot of these kids talk about.
Yeah. Right, those folks.
Do we know anything about what they actually do? Or is it all a big mystery?
It seems to depend on who you ask, which kid you talk to.
Oh, okay.
Some of them describe these guides as, like, teachers, getting them ready for life on Earth.
Like a pre-birth orientation.
Exactly. Prepping them for the big arrival.
Makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
Coming into this world must be a huge shock.
Right. But others say the guides are more like comforters, just helping them feel safe and less scared about being born.
Yeah, I bet you'd need a lot of comforting facing something like that.
Absolutely. And then there are some kids who say their guides are more like companions. Yeah, like buddies they hang out with and have fun with before they're born.
So it's not all serious business in this pre-birth world.
Seems like it's a mix of both, preparation, comfort, and a bit of fun.
A cosmic summer camp.
Yeah, something like that.
But seriously though, if these guides are real, what happens to them after we're born? Do they, like, stick around?
That's a good question. And honestly, even Dr. Chikawa doesn't really have an answer for that one.
Huh. I guess we're getting into some pretty deep territory here.
We are. The line between science and, like, spirituality gets pretty blurry.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about all this. So after all this research, all these stories, where do you land on all of this? Do you think these kids are really remembering something, or is there some other explanation?
Well, I'm a scientist, right? So I like to look for evidence and explanations that make sense.
Sure.
But I gotta say, some of these stories, they just stick with you. They're so consistent, so emotionally powerful.
So you're not ruling anything out.
Definitely not. I think it's important to be open-minded, but also critical. We can't just accept everything at face value, but we also shouldn't dismiss it all as nonsense.
I like that. A balance of skepticism and wonder.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot. And even if we never figure out if these memories are real or not, they still make us think about some pretty big questions.
They do. About life, about death, about who we are, why we're here.
Exactly.
And maybe those questions are more important than the answers.
Maybe they are.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But I want to hear from you all out there. Have you ever had any experiences that made you think about these kinds of things? Memories from early childhood, maybe, that just seem a little off, a little too vivid? Let us know. Because the mystery of where we come from and what it all means, well, that's a mystery worth exploring, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.